Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy Spoor. I'm the Assistant Director of ISSS, and I'm joined this morning by my colleague Amanda Phipps. She's one of the ISSS advisors, and we're going to take you through the Fall 2020 OPT webinar. Most of this will be focused on fall of 2020, but we will touch a little bit on the dates for spring of 2021 as well. So the basic thing you need to know about OPT is that it is to apply the knowledge that you've gained in the classroom at Penn to practical work experience, hence the optional practical training part of it. There are two types: pre-completion before you graduate and post-completion after you graduate. It's authorized by USCIS and it is recommended by ISSS. We make you a new I-20, we're only recommending OPT. And you do not need a job to apply. You may be applying now and you don't have a job. You still need to apply earlier in the fall if you're going to graduate in December. All right, so for eligibility, you need to have at least one academic year at Penn. That means really 2 semesters. And some of our master's programs are only 1 calendar year, but that's okay as long as you get 2 semesters. Normally that's September to May. Could also be January to August. There's different ways to do it, but 2 semesters, full-time academic status. Students get 12 months of OPT eligibility at each educational level. So you might get it at bachelor's level, master's level, PhD level. And the employment that you engage in must be directly related to your field of study. And we will talk a little bit more about that, what that means further into the presentation, but think about that, directly related to your field of study. Okay, types of employment. Unpaid work is okay. Volunteer is okay. Not a problem. You want to have at least 20 hours per week of whatever you're doing. And you can have multiple jobs. So you could have, 2 10-hour-a-week jobs, 3 10-hour-a-week jobs, and make 30 hours. And there's a way that you report that. You can have multiple jobs to maintain your F1 status with OPT. So it's quite flexible in that way. This is where we're going to talk a little bit about the field of study. So the rule from immigration is just that phrase: all employment must be directly related to your field of study. And that's kind of all they tell us. They don't give us a lot of details. So when we're advising students, we try to help them think about how a job is related to their field of study. And those resources to think about that certainly come from the job, the employer, the job posting, what things they're asking for in the job ad. Also, maybe your academic department can help you think through whether the job is related. Career services can help you think it through. It's not a perfectly black and white type of decision. You can certainly ask your ISSS advisor, and we will advise you, but we can't say 100% on jobs that we're not familiar with. Penn students are very smart. They do all kinds of wonderful and creative things, but it's hard to define sometimes if something is directly related to your field of study. But most of the time we can, and most of the time your employer can help you do that. And it's really a matter of, can you explain this at some time in the future to immigration if you're ever asked? You may never be asked. It may not matter, but it's really good to think it through when you're applying to jobs and when you're engaging in your OPT employment. So the OPT process has a bunch of steps. We got 6 steps here. I'm going to take you through these steps pretty quickly. You generate your OPT request in IPEN. You do the e-form in IPEN. Your academic department approves it, that you're eligible for OPT and that you're graduating. Then your DSO, that's your ISSS advisor, recommends the OPT, generates you a new OPT I-20. you file the documents with USCIS. And USCIS adjudicates your petition, your application, and then they send you your EAD card or employment authorization card. And then you need to report your employment to ISSS and to the CVIS portal yourself. And then we, update your employer information and your dates and your address, and you're good to go, and you're off and working on OPT. So here's the dates for the fall timeline. That's for this semester. And it was about a week ago that we got within the 90 days of graduation. So it's 90 days before graduation is when you can start to apply. And then you can choose dates sometime between December 22nd and February 20th. So that's your 60-day window to choose your OPT dates. I've already done a few of these. I did one for somebody who's starting on December 23rd. They want to start immediately. Then I've done a couple of OPTs for people that are starting on February 18th. So they're going to ask to start later. And that's really up to you to know what your job prospects are, when the job might want you to start, etc. So you have that 60-day window to start your OPT, to choose the start date. So here's the timeline for spring, and we'll be preparing. ISSS will be ready to accept all those hundreds of OPT applications in the middle of February. We're always ready for that. And students will start applying in late February, early March to start their work in the summer of 2021. So that's kind of the filing timeline for spring. I imagine a lot of you might be December grads, but there might be a few spring grads on this webinar as well. So that's kind of your timeline to think about. So be ready, but you can't actually apply in IPEN until February 16th, 2021. Okay, now Amanda's going to take over and talk about some fall 2020 updates to the OPT process.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good morning. Yeah, so before I go into detail about each step of the process, we have to address a few issues that are specific to fall 2020. So USCIS has recently announced new changes that are going into effect on October 2nd, which is this Friday. So they are adding a new I-765 edition. So as of October 2nd, they will only accept this new version of the form. The filing fee will also change. So as of this Friday, the fee will change from $410 to $550. What's really important about these changes and the timeline for which they're being rolled out is you need to be careful not to get kind of stuck in this in-between. Whereas if you submit the current edition of the form, which I believe is August 25th, 2020, if you submit that form and it gets to USCIS on October 2nd or later, your application will be denied. So you need to be very careful. Same with the filing fee, that your application will be rejected if it gets to the mailroom with an incorrect fee. So our recommendation is to wait until October 2nd until you mail out your application. If you have already started the process and you're graduating this fall, the safest option is to wait until at least this Friday and submit the application with the new form and the new filing fee. There's also, with this new rollout, USCIS has been authorized to use this U.S. Postal Service signature confirmation restricted delivery, which it sounds a lot more complicated than it is. It's actually a great way to try to avoid EADs getting lost in the mail. So when your OPT is approved, you will get what's called an employment authorization document, an EAD. And with this signature confirmation, it just means that you or whoever you have authorized to receive your USCIS mail for you has to sign for it rather than them just leaving it in the mailbox. You also can use what's called informed delivery with the U.S. Postal Service, which is great. I use it. I know a lot of my friends use it as well. So you will get an email ahead of time to let you see what mail is coming to you. And it's a good way to know, oh, okay, my EAD is coming tomorrow. I'll make sure that I'm there to pick it up. Or if you know that you're not going to be able to get your mail, you can put your mail on hold with the post office and then pick up your mail, including your EAD, at your local post office. So this is something we'll learn more about as the semester goes on. It is a new rollout for this fall, but please, the most important thing here is waiting until Friday if you are submitting your application this fall. Okay, another special consideration for fall 2020 is travel. So if any of you are outside the US right now and you're graduating this fall, please note that you must be in the US to apply for OPT. So I know travel is not very convenient right now, and depending where you're traveling from, there could be restrictions in place, but please keep in mind that you have to travel to the US in order to apply. This is also important for anyone who's outside the US if you need a visa, or if you're living in the country that has current travel restrictions, or even if you're not, to just be prepared that, as we've learned throughout this year, that things can change very rapidly and with very little warning. So if you're outside the US, I would recommend that you plan to travel sooner rather than later, because you have to come before your program end date. So I would not recommend waiting until November or December to travel to the US, as if travel restrictions come up at that time, then you could end up out of luck and not able to apply for OPT. So please, if you have a specific situation that you're not sure how to handle, please reach out to your ISSS advisor. Okay, now to get back to the normal OPT request process, Jeremy touched on this a bit. So the first step in this multi-step process is, of course, to look over the information for OPT, and you're already doing that by attending this webinar. Then you need to submit the OPT request form in IPEN, and this will go to your academic advisor just to approve that, as far as they know, you will be graduating, and then it will come to ISSS. So once it comes to ISSS, so your ISSS advisor is also what's called a DSO. So your ISSS advisor will process your form typically within 3 to 5 business days, and then we will issue you an OPT recommended I-20. So this will look just like your normal I-20, except on the second page, it will have the OPT recommendation with the requested OPT dates. Please make sure to look this over, make sure that your major is correct, make sure that the dates are the ones that you asked for. We are human, so we ask that it's good that you look it over to make sure that your I-20 is accurate before you submit your application to USCIS. And as we've been doing for the past several months, we are permitted by SEVP, the Student Exchange Visitor Program, to send I-20s electronically. So we will be doing that for your OPT I-20s as well. You'll just need to print them out and sign them and include a copy with your application. Okay, and then the third step is to actually compile all of the documents necessary and send your application to USCIS. Again, the form I-765, make sure to get that from the USCIS website. The edition for October 2nd is only available in preview mode right now. It has not been publicly released. Assuming that will happen soon, but please make sure to check the website for that form. On the ISSS website, we have a detailed checklist that is very helpful to make sure that you have all of the documents that you need for your application. And then once you have everything assembled, you should mail it to the designated USCIS lockbox or facility. And we do have instructions on our checklist of where you should be mailing the application. And something that's very important to keep in mind, from when your ISSS advisor recommends OPT, your application must reach USCIS within 30 days of the date that we issued the I-20. If it's even cutting it close to 30 days, talk to your ISSS advisor. We can cancel and re-recommend. Otherwise, you could submit your application and then it could eventually be denied. So please make sure to be in contact with your ISSS advisor if you are getting close to that 30-day mark and you haven't mailed your application. Okay, so step 4, this is the longest part of the application. It's the adjudication by USCIS. So processing times for OPT can vary widely, and they have over the past couple of years. We've seen processing in as little as 6 weeks and as much as 5 months or longer in some extreme cases. But 3 to 4 months is pretty standard, and that's what I'd recommend that you be prepared for timeline-wise. Once you submit your application, you will receive a paper receipt notice in the mail. It's very important that you receive this notice. If you don't, you should receive it within 30 days of when it is receipted. USCIS, you will have a receipt number that you can check, see the timeline of your application. It's not overly helpful. It doesn't update that much, but it will tell you when a receipt notice has been mailed and when your EAD has been created. So it's somewhat helpful. Make sure during this time you cannot engage in any employment. You have to wait until you have your EAD before you can start working. And to look out for your mail, because although it's not common, USCIS may send you what's called an RFE, or a request for evidence, during this adjudication period. So it's very important for you to check your mail and to keep up with your application while it's processing. Okay, step 5, and the best part of the process, is when you receive your EAD card. So this is a sample of what your EAD card will look like. It looks similar to a driver's license. It's very important to look it over when you get it. Make sure your name is spelled correctly. Make sure the dates are correct. Make sure that the category is correct. It will say that it's for post-completion OPT. Okay, when can I start to work? So there's 3 things that have to happen before you can start working on OPT. First is that your OPT has to be approved by USCIS. You have to physically have the EAD card in your possession, and the start date on your EAD has to be reached. So even if you have that EAD card in your hand in December, if you chose a February 1st start date, you still cannot work until February 1st. Be very careful when choosing your requested start date. Okay, and the final step in this process is OPT reporting. So it's very important, this is required while you're on OPT, that you must report the following: any changes to your name or your personal address, any updates to your employment. They have to be reported within 10 days of that change. And any changes to your immigration status, like let's say you are lucky enough to get the H-1B in the lottery and your status will change, make sure to let us know. Also, if you decide to depart the US and end your OPT early, you need to let us know that as well. All of this reporting can be done through the OPT reporting form in IPEN. So once your OPT is approved and your start date has been reached, you will get an email from SEVP to create this portal that will allow you to have a bit of access to your own CVIS record. Please note that this is not in any way associated with ISSS, and there's only a limited amount of support that we can offer with this portal because we can't actually see it. So you will receive an email to set up this portal. If you get locked out, we can help you reset it, but that's kind of about as far as our involvement with the portal goes. You will receive emails from this portal to remind you to do your reporting. But we request that you still report in IPEN as well so that we can support you. As I stated, we do not see what you report in the portal. So reporting through IPEN allows a second set of eyes to look over it, and if there's any issues, we can better support you. Okay, I'm passing it back to Jeremy for unemployment.
Thank you, Amanda. So I want to talk a little bit about unemployment, and you do have time to continue your job hunting and be unemployed while you're on OPT. But you do have to eventually be employed, because your OPT depends on you doing something worthwhile with your time in the U.S. So basically you have a total of 90 days of unemployment time from the time that the OPT card starts. So your card starts on February 1st, then you've got, that's the start of the unemployment clock begins at that time. And during that unemployment time is when you need to report to ISSS and to the SEVIS portal. Once you make that report, that's what stops the clock. So hopefully you will be able to start your job within, a couple weeks or a month of the time that your card starts, so that maybe you only burn 15 days or 30 days of unemployment. And that's usually what happens. Most students are able to report, and they're fine. But we do know that SEVP, the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, is starting to notice that students are not reporting their employment, and they're starting to send notices, letters to students saying, you didn't report your employment. What are you doing? We're going to close your SEVIS record on you. So they are checking to see if people are employed, and making sure that they're, number one, that they're reporting, that they have a job and are doing something worthwhile with their time in the U.S. So you basically have that window of 90 days to report your employment or be unemployed. And it doesn't just mean having an offer. It really means that you have begun your employment. You can't have an offer for 4 months in the future. That's too far in the future. It's got to be, I'm beginning my employment on this day within the 90 days. All right, so travel, especially on post-completion OPT, meaning after graduation, in general, we are advising that people not travel, because not only do you have the OPT complications, you have all the virus and travel ban and visa ban complications on top of that. So in general, we are not advising travel that goes with post-OPT. In general, we're not advising it. We have a few other specific scenarios that are coming up, but in general, try to remain in the U.S. while you're waiting for these processes. So there's a little bit of nuance here about when your OPT is pending, and I saw some questions in the chat, so I think this will answer your question. So you have to be in the U.S. at the time of filing, like now, okay, or the month of October. If you're not here, you're gonna come in, you're gonna file your OPT, and then hopefully you're gonna stay in the U.S. You don't have to, because you haven't graduated yet. So it's all about the difference between after your graduation date and before your graduation date. So if you're in the U.S. now and you travel while your OPT is pending, that's okay, because you haven't graduated yet. But after you graduate, that's where it becomes even more complicated, because in order to come back into the U.S. after graduation, because remember, your OPT, your I-20 is going to have a graduation date on it. It's going to say December 22nd. So if you try to come back into the U.S. after December 22nd, you really need to have that list of things there. You need to have your receipts. Hopefully you have your OPT card. You've got to have a valid F1 visa. You've got to have your valid I-20. You've got to have proof of employment. So after graduation, things get a lot more complicated. Same thing with May. So if you apply for OPT, let's use the spring example. You might apply for OPT in February, and you might travel in March. This is always the question for spring break. I don't know about spring break next year, but we'll see. Travel for spring break, you come back in, because you haven't graduated. You don't graduate until May. It's after May or after December, after you graduate, that's where the travel problem comes. So be very cautious about that. Try to remain in the U.S. and the possible risks to travel. So you get an RFE from USCIS asking you something about your OPT, and you're not here to respond. You're out of the U.S. That's a problem. You got to respond, or they'll deny it. Your inability to renew your F1 visa. If your F visa expires and you don't have your EAD card, you can't get a new F visa. Your EAD card gets lost in the mail and you're out of the US. It's very hard to track it down if you're not here. If your OPT gets denied while you're out of the US, and that's it. You don't get another chance to apply again. If you're in the US and you're still within your grace period, then that's okay. We'll just help you apply again because you're here. So the travel is a tricky thing. And generally, I would say try hard to remain in the US. Okay, so if your OPT gets approved and you've got your card in your hand and you've got your valid passport, your valid F1 visa, make sure you talk to your employer because they're not going to be happy with you if you leave the US and you get stuck outside and you can't come back to work for them on OPT. Make sure you have your I-20 travel endorsement signature within the past 6 months. So while you've been in school, ISS has been telling you, you have to get a travel signature once a year. Well, when you're on OPT, you have to get it every 6 months. You have to renew that travel signature more often. And we'll do that for you. That's not a problem, but you need to have it. You need to have your EAD card. You need to have proof of employment. And again, these are the normal OPT travel situation. That's not counting virus issues, visa bans, travel bans. Again, travel is tricky business at this time. Probably will be for a while into the future. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the STEM extension. Many students at Penn are majoring in some kind of science, technology, engineering, and math, and they may be eligible to apply for a STEM extension. That's a 2-year extension to your regular OPT. We're not going to do a whole STEM workshop here, except to say that many of you may have this or be able to apply for this. And check out the STEM page on the ISSS website. You have to have a certain major in order to do that, and you have to actually complete that major. You know, if you're a senior or a final semester grad student, it can be extremely difficult to change your major all of a sudden. So this is something you need to plan for, whether you're STEM or not. And that's an additional 2 years after you are in your regular OPT for a year. We've been talking about regular OPT, not about STEM. Here's some fast facts about STEM. It's an extension to OPT. You have to have your employer's assistance to fill out documentation and things like that. They have to fill out some forms. They have to be e-verified. And most employers are. Most employers are quite helpful with this stuff to help you apply for the STEM extension. And you won't apply until you're getting towards the end of your regular OPT period. So it's not something you're doing now at the front end. You're doing it in the future. You're going to apply for STEM. So H-1B cap gap extension. So here's a little bit of date timeline discussion. So, for example, if you're on regular OPT, and we'll use this as summer grads, because that's the best example. If you're a May grad and your OPT starts and ends approximately July 1st, this is regular OPT, then, or even STEM in the future. If it starts and ends around July 1st, and you're lucky enough to get picked in the H-1B lottery, your H-1B is not going to start until October 1st. So you've got a gap from, say, July to October. And if that H-1B has been approved and chosen in the lottery, then we can automatically extend your I-20 to cover the difference between July to October. So that's the cap gap. So it's H-1B cap, and then the gap in time, say from July to October. And it's quite easy to get. We have an e-form for it. You can apply for it. You have to give us certain evidence of the H-1B application and approval, and then we will extend your OPT till September 30th, and then you can work until your H-1B starts. It's a pretty good system that helps students bridge that gap from the end of their OPT to the start of their H-1B, and that's usually over the summer, July to October. So we got a few FAQs here. So this is back to the application time. This is something that Amanda reminded you of. If we generate your OPT I-20 for you and you don't send it in immediately and it's getting close to that 30 days, should you use it to apply for OPT? No, don't. Make sure that you get a new one from us if you're getting close to the 30 days, because it'll get denied. It really you need to get it from us and then send it in like the same week. Don't wait around on that I-20, because they're very strict on that 30-day rule. Do you need your EAD, the card, in your hand before you begin work? Yes, absolutely you do. You need to have that card in your hand to show it to your employer. Okay, they should not let you work until they see that card in your hand. And the date has to have arrived, of course. Can you change your OPT request dates? Well, that's a kind of a two-part question. If you are just applying in IPEN and you have not mailed anything in yet, then yes, contact your ISSS advisor. Maybe it's me, maybe Amanda, maybe Donna, and you say, oh, hey, can you change my dates? And we'll just change your dates. But once you send it in to USCIS, you're basically committed to those dates. Once you mail it out, you're committed. So your OPT, if you have not used it. Similar situation. If you have not mailed it in yet, it's easy. Just contact your ISSS advisor, cancel it. No harm there. And we can cancel it. If you've already sent it in, generally, no, you're committed. Occasionally, people are able to withdraw it from USCIS, but that's not generally a good option. So generally, no. You need to make your decision. I'm going for OPT or I'm not, whether you're going to cancel it or not. If you've already used 12 months in one program, can I get 12 months in another program? Well, maybe. It depends on the educational level. So if you go bachelor's to master's, then yes, you get another 12 months. But if you get two masters, you get one master's and then you go back and get another master's, then no, because it's by level. So the double masters, you can only get OPT for one of them. You can't repeat at the same educational level. And what's your immigration status while on OPT? Well, I hope you know. I hope that you know that it's F1. OPT is part of F1 status. You are still an F1 student at Penn. You are still talking to ISSS. We're still advising you about your F1 status while you're in the U.S. on OPT. Final thoughts. Please read through the information on our website. It's very frustrating to us when students come into an advising session and just say, just tell me about OPT. I don't know anything about it. Well, really, educate yourself some beforehand, learn about OPT, and then if you have specific questions, of course, we're happy to answer them. But you folks are doing that now. You're participating in the webinar, so you're getting a lot of good information. You're going to have a background in the general info about OPT. Please keep copies of all your immigration documents and any applications that you send to USCIS. Keep extra copies for yourself. Keep copies of your I-20s. Keep them all in a folder. That's important because you're going to need them. Please continue to read the ISSS emails when you're on OPT, because things may change, like the new form that's coming out on Friday. USCIS is constantly changing the rules, and we will try our best to advise you about that. So please read our emails. You know, the information that we're giving you now is our best guidance based on the current regulations, and we are not lawyers, and we have to be careful about that sometimes. So we can advise you about things, but we're not lawyers. Folks who are December grads, apply now, and folks who are May grads, be prepared to apply in February and early March, and we will process them for you. And on behalf of ISSS, thank you for attending, and we will continue to be in touch throughout the fall. Good luck with your remote learning, everybody.